Dr. Gorka, it is September the 11th today. Of course, a very poignant day in the minds of so many, if not everyone, who cares about this nation. Not just in this nation, by the way. People like me, I remember running down the street, seeing this stuff taking place on our televisions. I think it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon in local time in London. By the first time I saw what was happening here in New York at the Pentagon, in Pennsylvania too. Dr. Gorka, I don't think we've ever spoken about this. I'd like to understand your memories. Where were you, and what did it feel like to you at the time?
Well, I was living in Hungary at the time, and I was sitting in a cafe preparing my lecture notes for a class I was going to give the next day. And my phone starts ringing, and I get a phone call from somebody who'd invited me to a meeting with members of the American National Security Enterprise who were visiting Budapest. And he said, "I guess the meeting's off." And I said, "What do you mean the meeting's off?" And he said, "Switch on your television." And then I understood that, yes, the world had changed. I hadn't suffered. I didn't have people who were in the buildings or on those planes. But as a national security person working in the field of national security, our life changed as a civilization. But the important thing is, Raheem, as you know this, and the listeners know this, but the war didn't start on that dreadful Tuesday morning. The war with radical Islam really began when the first announcement was made after World War I to dissolve the caliphate. And just 4 years later, in the Suez region of Egypt, a group called the Muslim Brotherhood was established with its sole mission to recreate the caliphate. So this is a war that we've been engaged in for decades and decades and decades. And now, since 9/11, in the 16th year, it is now the longest war that America has been engaged in.
It's just hit 8:14 a.m. here on the East Coast, Dr. Gorka. That is the time of day 16 years ago that United Airlines Flight 175 took off from Boston. Over the course of this show, we will mark so many important timestamps of what happened there on 9/11. And of course, we have been remembering over the course of this show so far the importance of the lives of the first responders. And I say this knowing full well the people who have put themselves in harm's way over the past couple of weeks as well, with the hurricanes as well here in the United States. Such an important day. And we had Joe Imperatrice, the founder of Blue Lives Matter New York City, on just before you as well, Dr. Gorka. Do you agree such an important day to remember those first responders and not forget that there are people actually still suffering, still with long-standing illnesses, still even contracting illnesses to this day, that they got because of those hours and days and weeks spent at those sites inhaling those toxic fumes? It really, really pains me to think about what they still must be going through.
Yeah, I mean, it's very right of you to talk about the reality of the consequences of the attack. It's relatively easy to recognize the sacrifice made by the men and women who wear the uniform of our armed services, who've gone into harm's way in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere. But, wearing the cloth of the Republic isn't just about being a member of the Army, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, or the Navy. It's about first responders. It's about those police officers. It's about those paramedics who were running up the stairs of the World Trade Center to rescue the people trapped above the fireball before the building collapsed. Let's get this to a strategic level. There is no front line in this war. There's no Eastern Front. There's no Maginot Line. The front line in this war is Wall Street, is the moment you leave your house in the morning, is a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The front line is everywhere, Raheem.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about another of those front lines now, because I feel like we are getting to a point in this administration now. I fear we are getting to a point in this administration now where so many other things are taking precedence, and you can understand, of course, especially when there are existential issues, natural disasters, North Korea, so on and so forth. But I hope, and maybe you can assuage my fears here a little bit, that this administration is not being pulled away from dealing with radical Islam, radical Islamic terrorism, Islamic fundamentalism, literalism, the truth behind what so many tenets, as you say, of the Muslim Brotherhood are, and so many other of these groups. Do you feel like at this point in time, do the indicators tell you that by the end of this presidency, we will have seen movement on this, perhaps movement to the point where you have groups like the Muslim Brotherhood designated as a terrorist organization? Are we getting there?
Thank you for putting it into perspective. So let me reassure everybody who was worried when Steve resigned. Let me reassure everybody who was worried when I left the White House. Look, you've read my resignation letter, and I said the catalyst for me was when I heard the president's speech in Afghanistan, which had been written in a way to excise any mention of radical Islamic terrorism or radical Islam. But look, that decision was made so we can support the original agenda as effectively as possible, which right now means we're going to do it from outside the people's house. But to answer your question, yes, absolutely, the president will not give up. This is not about 8 months. This is about 8 years. And the president has told me he is going to stay on message. And we, Steve, you, all the people who support the original MAGA agenda will provide the president what he needs to make it a reality.
I not just supported the MAGA agenda, and obviously it played on the back of the Brexit campaign as well. I supported the Make America Great Britain Again agenda, Dr. Gorka. Is there any chance of that happening?
Let me check with the president on that one.
I was reading Bill O'Reilly's new forthcoming book, Killing England, and that just that cemented in my mind our rightful ownership over these colonies. Dr. Gorka, never you forget it. I just want to close with you on, you raised.
Just remember, Raheem, I've seen the lining of your favorite sports coat. Okay,
that's true. It is Old Glory. It is the Stars and Stripes. Dr. Gorka, right. I want to get your view on 60 Minutes last night, if you will entertain us with your thoughts on this. We've talked to Dan Gaynor about it. A lot of the callers watched it last night. Thought Steve came off very, very well. Anything from you on that?
Look, I'd love to comment, but I'll be honest with you, truth in lending. I'm in Israel right now for the Global Summit on Counterterrorism, so I haven't seen it, but the little clips and quotes I've heard reinforce in me the key message Steve gave, which is exactly what I've been promoting. The GOP establishment needs to understand they did not win the election last November the 8th. A real estate mogul called Donald J. Trump won it, and he is an outsider. The sooner the GOP understands that, the better.